Okay, but let's continue on. So first, the series of updates that we've done. So we will simply go to, okay. All right, so at the beginning of the month this last month, we updated the import time cards to just show job information, so that everybody could enter. If you have job costing turned on, you could enter a job for each of the time cards, as well as at that point, we didn't have the job hours implemented. But then later in the month, we found out we didn't have the job hours implemented, so we added the job hours to the time card so that you can post both entries, the job type and the job hours for job costing. Then we fixed the 1094C, basically those are the reports if you have the big health insurance. We added the year 2021 to it. Then we fixed the balance sheet profit and loss. The M1 is for the township side. I don't know if any township people are on, but it was only specified in level 4, so we made it to work with level 3 and level 4 accounts. Let's see. We did a report fix on the equipment multi-year questionnaire, so that it was a little wider, so you could make out the data in there. And then we fixed an issue in the setup departments where it was always popping a new. When you clicked on new, it would mess up something. And then we added the incentive pay line. We added that a while back ago, but it turned out the formula we had for the incentive pay wasn't calculating the incentive pay correctly. So we updated the formula, and that's been released and out there. So those are the last month of changes, and primarily everything should be working pretty smoothly for most people. Hopefully there's not a lot of big issues that came up or is coming up for you guys. Hopefully, because the reason I say that is moving on to our next part of our piece, which is the .NET 6. That you might be saying, well, what the heck is .NET 6 and why do I care? The short answer is you don't really care, but we care, but we need to let you know about it because it required us to redo all of ProFund accounting in order to support what Microsoft is saying is the future going forward for the next 5-6 years. So that required several changes and compromises in certain things that we were doing before, but now, in the ultimate end, it's for the better, obviously, because if there's a Windows 12 and a Windows 13 and a Windows 14, we'll be okay for it. Obviously, we're trying to make sure we're getting ready for Windows 11 to make sure we run very well with that. But one of the short-term things is that not every vendor is as progressive as we are, and we lost Zebra Printing. They decided that they produced a package that was really great, but they decided that they weren't going to bring it into the .NET 6 world, and so we lost the ability to use the if your printer is hooked up with a USB or if it's hooked up with a Bluetooth, we won't be able to talk to that printer anymore, but we will be able to talk to it if it's hooked up to a network. Because evidently all of their new printers at Zebra are only hooking up to your computer or to your device via a network linkage. So go figure. The company's deciding that USB and Bluetooth aren't really what people are using the barcode printers on. So just make sure you get that going, because we're hoping to release the .NET 6.0 version of our software in, it's the 7th now, so probably around the 20th or 21st of this month would be the day that we'd be kicking out the .NET 6 one, where the Zebra, would be. That's the only big loss we had as far as functionality. The rest of it is just things work a little bit a little bit differently than they used to. So we're trying to, alleviate as much of that, different component pieces as they work together and, bring everything into the new world of Microsoft and development tools and being able to continue forward as, if something new and fancy comes out, that'll happen. So, these things are progressing and we're pretty excited about them. And like I said, hopefully sometime in the middle of this month, we'll be putting out the .NET, our first release in .NET 6. What will you guys see when that happens? Probably very little change, other than the one I were indicating, which is the Zebra printer issue. Other than that, everything else will be, working just like it always has, look like it just always has. But behind the scenes, there's new glue, duct tape, and paper clips, if you would, putting it all together, to make the application function correctly. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of it, that we're working on it. We're trying to, we always want to try to stay relatively close to, the development cycle for making software. But it's important that you're aware of it, because when we do put out that release, there could be very well something that, in our testing that we've been doing for the last 2 weeks, we miss. We're trying to make sure we at least run every single one of the menu items. But like, as Paul can attest, he's found a lot of little itty bitty things that are like, they are actually broken in the other one. They're not quite right in the other one. So we are also getting a chance to fix some of those things that are, it just wasn't quite working right. So we fixed it in the previous version, or we fixed it now so that, when the new version of .NET 6 will be good. All right, any questions on this whole .NET 6 and why am I even bringing it up? And, you want to fall asleep when I do, but, anything like that? All right, so the exciting part is moving on to Mr. Timecard. If you've seen it in the past, it's going to look somewhat similar from it, but there's a lot, again, even with the Timecard, we had to move it into .NET 6 from the .NET 5 it was in. So the Timecard has already been, migrated to it, but obviously nobody's working with it quite just yet. So I can kind of only show certain pieces because other pieces still are in the process of getting the upgrades, so they kind of don't work exactly as they're used to. But we're always moving on it. All right. Oh yeah, here's our please type any question box. Next webinar, April 4th, but let's move on to the web time card. All right, so hopefully you can see it. Putting an employee number, we put in a prefix code now to know who you are. So if you're, whatever you guys, when you sign up to use it, you'll get to pick a prefix code you want to use for your employees so you know, because everybody has an employee number 001 and 005. So we need to know who 001 it is. So we give up to a 6-character prefix code, but we try to tell everybody, try to keep it to 3 characters because it's a lot on a cell phone to have to keep jury rigged. But we're going to go to 0068. We'll go ahead and log in. So we got pretty much, this is just our welcome screen for everything. The users can do pretty much soon, it's just going to be settings and sign out. Personal, they'll be able to view their time pay stubs and view payroll banks, but we're talking about how that's going to work. They're broken right now because of the piece that I have, but I do have working is enter time card and approve time card and view time card. So we're going to go in, and Homer has a time card for today already that I put in this morning. So we can put a new one in by clicking on the new. And we put a new time card in. Oh, let's give them 2 hours. The notes, having fun in the sun. Extra rate. And now here's something a little different where he's actually going to be picking the pay type that we have set up for him, but this time it's just going to be regular. So we have again, the ability to put these, different pieces of equipment in. So if he's going to use, if he's going to put a new piece of equipment in, eventually this will have, picking codes and everything like that, and they'll be able to type in a code instead of just from the drop down. The equipment hours would be 2 and save. Inventory is still not quite working, and we're going to do a template. So he's going to do primary heavy bridges. And again, I have no idea what these templates are, so I just pick one. Lawrence sounds like a good one. Engineering. Okay, and then we just save it. So the difference is, now we see the 2 time cards that he has. He can edit a time card. He can delete the time card. At this point, because they're not in, when the time card has been imported, it will allow him to see, this will change color. The header, this little description at the top showing what he picked, will change color to indicate whether it's been approved, denied. So let's go in and I didn't set up a supervisor. So let's see I don't know who Homer Simpson's supervisor is. So if we go to approve time cards, we load the time cards. So I have time card 68. And all we're allowing here for a supervisor to do at this point now is just approve and deny. They cannot make any modifications anymore. So we'll go ahead and approve. This approves everything. If we didn't want to approve everything, we already did it. Well, we can come in here and deny one. So we can deny his first time card entry and approve his second one. Then go ahead and save that. And then if we come back to view time cards for Homer, we can go to enter time cards. You'll see it. Yeah, we have it in red and we have it in green because it's been approved. So he can't, if you notice, the buttons at the bottom are gone because once it's been approved, obviously Homer has no ability to change anything. And then here we have the Pine Grove. It's been in red, so he can make any changes he needs to make, to correct it. So this is currently where we're at with the time card system. We're working on, our biggest struggle has been not necessarily just getting the things to work great on a big screen, but when it's on a little cell phone. And so even though the other people on the project said don't show this, I'm going to go ahead and show kind of what it looks like on a cell phone. We'll switch it to F12. All right, and we're on an iPhone SE is what we're emulating. So this is kind of what it would look like on an iPhone. So it's not too bad, but there are, particular issues that makes it difficult to, like, when we get, because right now this doesn't show the equipment necessarily until he edits it. And when he goes in to edit it, it sort of doesn't come back correctly because it's missing all of his equipment. But you get the idea of this is, there's going to be a little bit of scrolling on a phone to make it all work for what's going on.
All right, we do have a question in the chat.
Okay, what's the question today?
How will the employee get this on their phone?
It's a website. So you're going to go to, it's going to be, the website in the end will be called www.mywork.kajtedinc.com. And then when they sign into the GH or whatever the little initial is, that's the database that it will go to. So that'll point all the way back to the database that you have. So you'll be needing this. We'll be setting up an interface between your local database and the web. It's protected, it's encrypted, it's got all the firewalls on it. So it's not we're pretty certain it's not a hackable port. So we've done all of that parts to it, to make sure it satisfies, those kind of things. We can put, filters on it and anything else you need to do to make it more secure if you need to. But again, this is just, all that's going to be getting put in here is just the time card information. So there won't be a whole lot of, it won't, in other words, it's just a way that we communicate back. So that way we're not saving the data on our website. We're actually saving it from our website directly back to your database. So to show that, we've been working in the database here. And so if I come back to the main thing and I go to payroll, view time cards, employee number 0068, who we've been using. And his pin is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's one of those really hard pins for me to remember. Here's the time cards with we got a status of rejected. But
We do have another question.
But here's his time cards that he's currently put in today, that we just did today. So, yep.
If I deny time, will I be able to put a comment on it? Right now,
Yeah, right now what's going to happen is we're switching how the deny and approve work. So if somebody denies it, they have to put a message in. Okay. And then if somebody, when the employee brings up his time card and it's denied, he'll have a button there to read the message that the guy puts in. But it doesn't change the notes on the time card. It's a separate place for the denial request and reasons to show up, so that the employee can, see the, why it was denied without changing, because he may need to put a decent note in there for other reasons. And we felt that, overloading that note area for approval and deny messages didn't seem fair. So we made a new one. Now, with that being said, we're trying to make this work so that as we enfold this into, as a new place begins to adopt the web one, it's still the old one, that your employees are mostly used to right now, will still function for a while. But when we finally do release the web one, there'll be like a, 8-month time frame that we'll try to make sure both will function with each other. But then obviously we need to have the old version of it kind of be scaled out, because we can't make changes to the old one. Microsoft was very kind in making that happen for us. So, we're, like I said, we're trying to be a good bridge so that we have some time. You guys will have a couple of months of time between the new and the old to move it. So yes, while if everybody is on the new people will see the deny message, but obviously I can't change what's on the old one. So the old people wouldn't see the deny message. It'll still be denied and they still have to bring it up, but I have no way of making that software show the quote new deny. There is a note that we do say that on the new system that all of the approval and denies have to be done with the new system on the web. Once you bring in the web part, you have to use the web to do the approval and the denies. Even for the old card, even if it's an old time card from the old system, they're going to show up on the web version for the approver to approve or deny it.
we have another question.
Sure.
Does this include in the view time card? Right now, when I deny rejected view, it doesn't let me leave a comment.
Right now it doesn't. I'm only right now when you reject something, it doesn't give a place for a comment. All you could possibly do is modify the notes field in the current system to indicate why you denied it and then do the deny. But what we've been going back and forth whether the supervisor should be allowed to make any changes, and we're falling on we're coming to the point where we're deciding that a supervisor should not be available or allowed to modify anything that the employee has put on their time card. So if it isn't 100% right, they have to send it back to the employee to fix. There's no more wiggle room for the supervisors to make changes to employees' time cards. Okay, so can there be a change made that cannot be entered for a day after that payroll period was processed? Right now, I can go and enter time even though those days were processed already. You got to declare process. Process is if it's been imported or if it's been approved. Even though something has been approved for a time card, we are still allowing them to add more to the time card. For the simple fact that, again, it could be something where, they start their day, they're a driver, so they work the night shift and they put their time card in for the previous night, but it fell into the next day because they worked, over the midnight hour. And so they put in, 4 hours of overtime at the beginning of the day between the hours of 1 in the morning and 4 in the morning. And then they, went to sleep, came back into the office at noon and drove again. Well, it's very possible that the clerk may have, or that the supervisor may have approved the 4 hours, but we still have to let them key in the remaining hours. So any day that's been approved, we're going to be allowing them to key in more time, even though it's already been approved. However, imported is a little different story. We are going to lock down once something has been imported. We are not allowing them to do any kind of changes to their time. So they can't, for instance, if it's been approved, they can't change that time card entry, but they can add another time card entry for the day. But if it's been imported, then that kind of locks out the whole day. Okay, so now we were concerned about allowing other types of entry because now in this one, they're going to be keying in whether it's regular or overtime, or if they're using comp time, they're going to be saying, the comp time codes, and we're going to have some rules and permissions on those to be set. But they're going to be picking the, which hours type that comes across, so that if you want to allow, the thing is, do we want to allow someone on today posting time for tomorrow because they think they're going to do it? And that's where we get into the sticky part of the thing. Because who knows what happens? The guy may have posted, 2 weeks in advance that he's got work, for the work he's doing. For some things it makes sense, like vacation. It's for vacation because obviously he's planning on vacation, so he wants, the next, in 5 days I'm going to have my vacation time. So he gets that posted, and approved already before he leaves. But things like sick time, it's not likely you really want someone to be able to do sick time, but maybe you can enlighten me on more of what's going on. What are you thinking that you'd like to have see entered into the time card system in ahead of time, rather than it's tracking what is actually done?
Right. And yeah, I see there are things we wouldn't want them to enter ahead of time, but there's a couple things. So we must not have our meetings set up correctly right now, that because we can't enter them ahead of time.
You should, if it's part of the personal, there should be no reason
Okay.
why you can't.
Okay.
But if they're not showing up under personal and meetings are like, you made a template for meetings.
I did.
Okay, well then, yeah, anything under the template,
Right.
account numbers, that's not going to be lie to go ahead. But if you set up the pay type
Okay.
under the meetings, and as long as meetings has a valid account, a valid full account number, that was why I asked the question. Do you post your meeting hours to different account numbers?
Right.
If you do, if it's just like 2 or 3, then you want to just set up M1, M2, and M3.
Right. I gotta grab the phone, so I'm gonna
Okay.
I'm gonna mute it again.
Okay, go ahead.
Somebody else grabbed it. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So did we get any other questions?
Yep. Why would you set up meetings as personal time?
Meetings as personal times is, again, like Lori was saying, sometimes they do have meetings that are scheduled meetings, like safety meetings and things like that. And so I guess for their place, they set up a single account number for all the time to be posted to that meeting. But This way you can say, okay, well, tomorrow from noon to thing, I know I'm going to be in my meeting all morning. So certainly you could set that up break as a pay type. And then that way you can track the fact that how many hours were spent in meetings rather than just by looking at the account number. The rollout of this is, again, it's a fluid thing because, just as we get one thing, labeled out and designed, we run into an issue with someone's cell phone type. So we're really trying to make sure that we have the 3 most common iPhone versions and the 2 most common Android versions of a cell phone working, as well as, we had to switch gears to level 6. So there's a lot of things that you have to be in the right place at the right time before it rolls out. We are hoping, though, that once we get through the .NET 6 changeover at the, towards the end of this month, that we'll be able to have full-time resources back on the time card. So I'd be looking for it either somewhere in the middle of April or the beginning of May. It's close. I mean, we have a lot of stuff done that's, I can't really show and tell because we didn't make the visuals work of it, but there's just a lot of work that's been done behind the scenes to get this stuff ready. Yes, you're existing. We're trying to make it just so you can be on board. We're trying to make it so that you can continue to use the old time card system for a series of months after we release this. So it isn't just an all or nothing switch over. There is some, gotchas on it that once you start using the web, you have to use the web for approval for everything, even the old time cards. So that's one gotcha that we do have. We're not able to have the old approval screens on the existing time card app approve one of the new kind of time card entries on the web app. So technically I don't know. We've tried it once, but I think it blows up the old app when you have one of the new time cards in. But the new time card app will be able to approve both the old or the new for that part. But basically, as far as entering time cards, they can still enter on the old for a while. And the new still uses all your same permissions, all your same templates, all the same pieces, with the caveat there's a few extra things added on the new where we add the job type hours, the job type code where they can put in directly on the main screen. They can put in they're actually selecting which pay type now to use instead of just assuming it's regular. They're allowed to pick overtime, comp time, regular, of course. So, that's to help with there still is an extra pay to flag the import process to ask for more rate, but the hopes is that using pay codes with a flair for trying to avoid those extra rates and just informing them, hey, if you're the supervisor for the day, you use, instead of regular, you use supervisor or whatever pay type, and that pay type has whatever you need to have set up to give the guy his bump in pay for those hours. I've listened to a lot of different places and how they do the extra pay, and in order to alleviate that extra pay being entered for everybody, we're trying to make it so there's a little less entry that's got to be done during the import process. Any other questions?
We do have another one.
Okay.
Will an employee be able to use their phone and also the kiosk to enter time?
Absolutely. If you allow it. I mean, you do have to allow the phone to be used. And unfortunately, the very first release of this won't have the Geo Locking turned on, but a future release shortly thereafter will have the Geo Locking. What Geo Locking means is that even if he's on a phone, he's got to be within a certain distance of specific areas. This is only if you want to turn it on. It's up to you guys. Obviously, it's going to be an option, but as well as the distance that you want to use. So the guy could drive into the parking lot, get on his cell phone, and do it. It's completely up to how you want to work. How you want to manage it. They can certainly be anywhere. You don't have to use geo-locking, but we're going to offer that as one ability so that you can kind of verify the guy just didn't roll out of bed and put a time card in.
We do have another question.
Okay.
Will we be able to set the default pay type, or will they always have to choose it?
It's going to default to currently what's in right here under pay types. If you go to payroll, set up payroll types, we have default right at the bottom. So whichever one has that, that's going to be what we're going to default to. And when the screen comes up, it'll default to whatever has got this default set. And only one pay type can have that default set. So if I find regular here, oh, R22 has got it. Okay, these are stuff we're playing with, so this is a big test database. So yeah, R22 is the regular code, and he's got the default. So that's the code that would come up. The person, when they're picking the codes, are not going to see this. Okay, they're not going to see that code. They're going to see the description. Just so you're aware. Again, just meaning that, you know, your employees shouldn't care whether you call it R22 or R14 or R8 or S or V. They just need to pick the right name out of a, you know, correct set of names. And likewise, there'll be permissions on all these. So if like, for instance, on, you know, you don't want them to pick this beautiful 444, obviously this is test. If they're not supposed to have that, you know, that is really only a very specific one for a specific purpose, then just don't give anybody permission to use it, and they won't even see it in the time card app. But as far as will they have to choose it, it'll always have to be chosen now in the new. They'll have to pick something. So it'll default to that, but they'll have to pick something in the entry. It won't allow them to put a time card in without something in that entry. If that's another part of the question that you're asking. Okay, is there anything else? Any other questions? I'm looking here at seeing if there's any more activity on the chat. I don't see any activity. Do you see any activity, Paul? You're looking at the window directly. I'm just looking at a number.
No, I don't see any new questions being asked.
Okay. So that, I guess if I go back to Mr. PowerPoint, that takes us to the next webinar is April 4th, 10 a.m. We will most likely have yet another update on the time card piece. We'll be closer at that point. Then, as well as the .NET 6 should have been released by then. So I'm sure there's going to be some, you know, things there. A lot of interesting things happen on the .NET 6, just to bring you up to speed on it, that just made it, because it required us to go back and look at everything. You know how that is when you have a huge number of you know, code or you know, a huge number of anything. There's stuff you haven't looked at in over, you know, 4 or 5 years that you haven't even, well, it's just always worked, and so you've just kind of left it alone. But now you've got to go back and look at it. So there's just, like I said, a lot of interesting things. We've cleaned up a lot of little stuff that we normally wouldn't have, you know, had a chance to get back to. So hopefully, you know, things will be smoother and faster in the code when we're all said and done with it. All right, so now it's any question, any answer, anything you want in the world. Doesn't have to be on the time card, doesn't have to be anything, any question you have.
Sorry, I may have missed, you may have answered this, but I'm wondering when you're entering time and you copy the equipment to the next entry. So my first entry was 2 hours. My next entry is going to be 3 hours. Right now, it won't copy the equipment at 3 hours. It keeps it at 2. You have to be equal or less than. When going forward, can that be more? Greater than?
We're changing how copy works. Let me go back to that screen if I can. Hang on.
Okay.
It's here somewhere. I feel it. I sense it. This is it. And let me get it out of that cell phone mode because it's really hard to see it in the cell phone mode. Okay, so let me save this time card. I'm not sure what it was, but what's going to happen is if when they get back to this screen after entering us their first time card, there is going to be another button down here for a copy.
Okay.
So when they click that copy, it will be we kind of were testing some of it here because you notice we brought the equipment over
Right.
with the 4 and the 2. But what we're trying to do here is when they hit in the number of hours, some of the stuff is going to be now ordered. So they can't just go hit notes and pay type and then go number of hours. So we're gonna be like dimming this, or if you will, not enabling them to click on any of this until we have
Okay.
the new number of hours. And when they put in, 5, and then they, click off of it, it's going to change all of these to 5.
Okay.
Okay. Or it's going to ask the question, do you want to update your equipment hours? Is probably what's going to happen, because some people will want that, some people won't.
Okay. And I'm assuming equipment groups will be there, not just single pieces of equipment?
Yeah, we're going to change this whole, when we select a piece of equipment, it's going to be a little different. This doesn't work. These kind of things, or they work great on a PC, big drip, big pick list. They don't work so good on a phone. So you click one of those on a phone and it's your thumb gets tired getting down to the bottom, and you accidentally usually pick 1 or 2 of them on your way down to the bottom. So because there's so much equipment, we've got a couple of ideas. One of our main primary ideas is that they're going to have to at least get close to an equipment number, and the dropdown isn't going to give them everything. So in other words, they got to at least have a beginning feel for what the heck the code would be.
Okay.
And we're going to be sticking closer to codes on the equipment. Same thing with inventory. Just because if you got to do it on a cell phone, holy Toledo, is it painful to go through 400 or 500, or some places have like 3,000 or 4,000 pieces of equipment, and 8,000 or 9,000 pieces of inventory, and to go through that in a list is like, oh my gosh, my thumbs get tired on the cell phone. So I'm thinking, well, this is, if I always look at it at this point right now, well, this is why it's taking so long. When we get this on a cell phone, I'm like, oh my God, and I hate cell phones. So just I'm a great person to say, if this is going to be this painful, there's just no effing way that I'm going to put something like this out, because it's too painful for somebody to use.
Yeah.
So we're adopting certain things, and one of the interesting things is we do have the ability now to say, hey, if you're on a bigger screen, give them more options than what the cell phone has. So what will be interesting is certain things will just disappear off the screen when they're on the cell phone. Like we might on the cell phone just have put in a code, and that's, if you don't know the code, there's no help on the list of codes, if you would.
Okay.
It's possible we may get to that point. So you put in this, in the code would take the code or a group number,
Sure. Okay.
It'd be something like that. But yeah, you get the idea. And then of course, if they pick a group number, they have to have full rights to all the pieces of the group for the group to bring it in. We're not going to do the partials anymore.
Oh yeah. We weren't doing that anyway. So perfect.
Okay. So, but that, get the idea. And again, you got to understand, if I have this great big huge screen, man, I can do a lot of good stuff, and it's easy, and you can have stuff that's just simple to do. But boy, when I have an Android Galaxy S7, and oh man, when I'm running it on that directly, it's like, holy Toledo, this is painful. So I'm definitely trying to make sure all the pain points are as alleviated as possible, before the first go of this goes out, so we can have it, in a situation where, the acceptability by your employees won't be like, what the heck is this piece of junk, but they'll be able to actually, utilize it and get their time cards in without it being a 4-day process and, several bandages on their thumbs to try to fix the scrolling. All right. Any other questions? The tablets work. We've been testing it on an iPad, so all those kind of things work. Because again, it's just at some point we'll have we want to have a test website out there that anyone can go to, just kind of mess around with it, just to kind of see once we have 90% of it in place. We'll probably do that for a bit. And get some feedback on, different stuff. I mean, obviously the data is not your data and you're not going to know, but, we'll publish, employee numbers and passcodes to put out there for you to go ahead and put time cards in and approve or deny and play around with that stuff. All right, well, I'm going to call it a day then if there's no other questions. Thank you for attending, and we'll be here as always. If you need us, you know where we live.
You are now working smarter with ProFund Accounting. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.